Cinema, the only show that is 3 dimensions away from Final Destination 3, being called Final Destination 3. I'm your host, 3D Jake, and today we're looking at Final Destination 3, released in 2006. Final Destination 3 is a movie directed by James Wong and is written by Glenn Morgan and James Wong, once again, and it stars Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Ryan Merriman, and Amanda Crew. The movie is essentially this time about a theme park disaster that happens in Canada. No, I'm sorry, New York, or it was. Actually, I think it's actually is it like New England or something, or Maine? I think it actually isn't New York. I think it actually is might even be Boston even. I'm sorry, I don't know. I will try to find out during editing what it is, and I'll try to put it here. But I will say, the movie basically is about this high school group that go to a theme park, as for their graduation. And then, of course, they go there, and, of course, and a bad disaster happens, and, of course, a girl sees them all die in the tragic accident, and then she freaks out, and some people get off the thing, and then it happens just like it was. And then, of course, a couple of weeks go by, and then they all start dying the way they're meant to die on the roller coaster. I will say, having Glenn Morgan and James Wong, I was so happy because I liked Heart 2, I really do. But there was a lot of campiness in the second one. And I like that they try to bring back the emotional part of the first two movies because I really, really like when Final Destination actually tries to sit there with the grief. Like the first movie, I've noticed that when I rewatched it the other day, even though I already reviewed it, but I'm just like, I like the emotion that when that plane blows up, you don't just jump to the next death. You sit there, and the next death is it's almost 15 minutes or 20 minutes before we get to the next death. I think 20 minutes before we get to the next death. While in other movies, it's maybe 5 to 10 minutes, maybe less. And I think that I really like that this actually sits with you in the movie. And so you're just like, wow. It doesn't just every death in the movie. In this movie, I will say, it does feel like it at least speeded up a little bit. It feels like in the first movie, they're like, well, we kind of when we made the first, because these are the same people that made the first movie. So I feel like this is kind of this is the true sequel. A lot of people say in Final Destination term. And my buddy Ryan from Ryan Cam loves this movie. This is his favorite one, and I get it. I totally get it because this is a good one. I mean, this is probably a lot of people do consider this the second movie because it is essentially a continuation, even though it's not a continuation of the first movie. It's essentially it feels like a continuation of the tone of the first movie because it is very dark and gritty. It's not just a lighthearted movie. This movie actually does have horrific deaths in the movie, and it does feel. Although I do feel unlike the first movie that lets you sit there, this movie doesn't sit there. It does go okay, this person dies in a drive-through, and then about 5 to 10 minutes later, 5 minutes later or so, we're gonna go to the weightlifting, and I'm like. I do sometimes feel like there are certain characters in the movie that are just sit there and caricatures, and I really do like though the tragedy, the build up and everything, especially after the theme park accident happens. You sit there and you sit with her for a few, you see her grieving and everything, and I like that idea. And then you get the exposition of it and everything, and I like that it sat there. But then it felt all right. But then they had to go to the tanning salon and you had to see the boobies and all that, and I'm like. Look, I love boobies, I do, but I'm just it's just gratuitous. Honestly, most women do not tan nude. I mean, look, I'm sure there are some, but most are not going to go to a public tanning salon, even if the door is locked, tan nude, especially if they're worried about people walking in on them, and especially if there's no one but a guy there, okay? Yeah, they're not, that's not happening, okay? And also, they're not going to be sitting there singing, go in Cusco, I'm just saying. Although, and also, I call BS on how, they couldn't get out because they're, both trying to get... I'm like, you could easily... One of you just lifts it up. You're free. I mean, but I understand it's a movie, and everything. And I know a lot of people remember the tanning bed scene, but I remember, to this day, I think, one of the most crucial deaths in the movie that always sticks to me is the drive-thru death. Because I'm sitting there watching that, okay? And all of a sudden, you hear that song, you see the truck coming down. And I think that's just such a good death. Where it's there is someone waiting. And I'm just oh man, when you see that truck just coming down the hill and everything, and they're they have to kick open the window, and all of a sudden it just comes right through, his engine just goes right to the guy, the next person in line, and it turns out it is the next person on the roller coaster. I thought that was such a cool kill, I really do. And then it just, how it flicks, and then it's skull comes off, that's cool. and everything. And I do like, I know some people like this. There's some stupid deaths, and they're like, one death I thought was really stupid is the one guy, the athlete, where he's like, fuck death, oh, and then he does like, whoa, and all of a sudden his head gets crushed, and I'm just like, that is stupid. Okay, that's a stupid death. That's not a good death. Okay, I mean, it's like, I will say the tanning bed death's even better. Even though there is a joke in the movie that I always laugh at, where like at the tanning bed's funeral, the girls their funeral, because the way their tanning bed burns, the coffins are put the line next to each other, and then he's like, this one guy, goth dude, who gets angry about them, saying no one's gonna miss them, and whatever, just be insulting. So the two guys, the athlete and the other guy, they both take him. They pay the lead guy. They both take him and make him go in the van, get in his van, and go home. And so, and then the one dude goes, the athlete dude goes, man, if I die, man, just give me a PSP or something. Give me something to do. And I'm just thinking, you're gonna be dead, like But I'm just like, but then when he dies, I wish so much that when he died, that the lead guy goes, now if you excuse me, I got to go to Circuit City and get a PSP. Like that, I really wish that would have happened. He would have said that. I would have died laughing. That's been the funniest joke of the movie, But I really enjoy. This movie is a really good movie. I still think the first one is a much more serious movie. There are a lot of serious moments in the movie, but there are some comedic moments like that, like the athlete. And I'm just thinking, like, I feel like he's trying to be Carter from the first movie, but like more goofier, And I understand that in the first movie, people loved the joke, Carter, you dick. And I feel like they try to play it in on the last and the later movie, especially in the fourth movie. But I feel like watching this, I do feel like one of the best, and I like that there is someone that gets upset. Because, there's an idea in the first one you could probably set up even, where, if, your girlfriend dies, why wouldn't Carter seek vengeance against Alex? Because he feel like he caused his death. Instead, they do have that kind of character where his girlfriend is the goth dude. His girlfriend gets killed, because she's next on the list, and then she gets, like, staple gunned through the face. And so then, of course, he gets angry and he's following her because he wants to cause her death. Like, he feels like that you caused our deaths. And so I thought that was a good idea, although I felt like the payoff was not really much, but I thought that was a good idea that they did, and everything. And I just thought that, and I thought the whole thing in the end, I do think that, where it's just set up there, like, with the horse and everything, where the one girl gets a rope around the neck, and then she's about to and then the guy cuts the rope off. And then, like, the spear launches and goes to the one girl. I thought that was pretty cool. I'm like, that's pretty cool and everything. I will say, I think, there are some moments like some cheesy moments in the movie and everything where, like, the girl's like, oh, SpongeBob. SpongeBob lives underwater. And he goes, it's so lame that you know that. And I'm like, it's freaking SpongeBob SquarePants. Everybody knows that. I'm like... and I do think there is a cool cameo in the movie by Tony Todd, who does the voice of the devil at the theme park ride that they're about to go in before it leads to a tragedy. And I honestly, like, there is a lot of, like, fun build-up at the beginning, but then it just, like, which there also is a really big plot hole in the movie, because once they realize their death happens in the movie, like, once, it's because it's supposed to be his camera gets knocked down, goes around, like, the girls knock it off, and then the camera hits the hydraulics and it comes apart, and then they all, the thing comes apart and it all starts happening. Well, he gets off the ride with his camera. So how was just magically happens now, like the thing, because I'm like, you need A, B, and C for it to happen. And I'm like, A, B, and C does not happen because one of the pallets, so really that thing should go normal. I'm just saying. Or he should have been on the ride too, I'm just saying. And I do like that there are some clever hiddenness, like, one of the lead girl's sister was on the thing too. And then, also, I watched the movie back and forth to see if I could spot her, if this was just a plot error. No, she's in the ride too. Like, you just don't see her because when she falls to her death, before you can see her, I'm like, that's clever editing. I respect them for that. Like, she's in the movie. And apparently behind the scenes, the actors had to ride the roller coaster so many times that they had vomit bags in there with them because they were getting sick. And they were like, there were shots where they're just like, oh, I'm so dead. And that was part of the requirement for signing up for the movie because, like, hey, you have to ride the roller coaster a lot for POV shots and stuff. And I'm like, this is the only movie I'd never be in. I'm sorry, but I don't do theme parks, man. Like I said, if I go like to Disney or Universal, I'm not doing motion rides like that. Like, I could not do, like, I got sick on the Despicable Me ride at Universal, so I'm not gonna go on a roller coaster. I don't care what, okay? I'm just saying. All right, that's the one thing, okay? Anything else, I'm fine with. Like when I went to do Disney, I got sick after doing the Star Wars ride, the Space Mountain. I'm one of those people who I need to take Dramamine before I get on an airplane or before I do a theme park. But most of the time, like, I honestly can do one or two big rides like that before I tap out. I'm one of those people, so I could not do that ride. I would never die in Final Destination 3 because I would literally be the guy that's like, look, I'm not getting on that ride, especially it's called the Devil Ride. I'm like, hell no. I'm not getting on that ride. You're not making me get on that ride. I'm sorry. I'm not getting on that ride. So, unfortunately, I would survive. Well, fortunately for me, but unfortunately for them, they would die. But I'm just saying, at least I would not die. I'm just saying, because that's crazy, okay? Especially, and honestly, I would never be in this movie. If they said, look, you can be in the movie, but you got to be in the roller coaster. I'm like, I guess I'm not being in the movie then. But yeah, I just think that's really cool. And also, there's a cameo from the guy from Glee in the movie before he was famous for Glee. He's like at the end of the movie, one of the sisters, like, because at the end, the sister, when she finds out the sister was on the ride with them, they're going to meet with three guys, and one of the guys is the dude from Glee. And I'm like, huh, that's cool. And also, apparently, the movie just ended originally. The original ending of the movie was just them at the end after the thing falls down and kills McKinley. And then, of course, that was just, it ends there. But then, again, Test Times were like, what the fuck? Like, that just ends like that. And so then James Wan was like, well, we have an idea for part 3. So they used the idea for another movie, part 4 would be. They used that idea, what about a train crash? So at the end, she gets on a subway, then she meets the girl from part 2, and they're actually cousins. And then, they get in there, and all of a sudden the train crashes and kills them all and everything. But the girl from, part 2 was doing Criminal Minds, so she couldn't scheduling, she couldn't work it in. So, of course, they just brought her sister in and killed her sister and everything. And which I think it works. It still works really well. And also, there is like a newspaper article, because about when the DVD came out, they did a Choose Your Own Fate version of the movie where when the actor, you have a choice where you can save an actor from the movie, and if so, you'll see the actor survive for like 5 minutes, like you could save Frankie Cheeks, and then like they'll carry him away on a stretcher where he's like his ass is up in the air or something like that going. He says, "You owe me a car, man." And then like at the end of the movie, like it'll show you like a newspaper headlines and all what they're doing now, and like when you get on the train. It had a newspaper that fell with a wood chipper saying that that the people from part 2 died in a wood chipper accident. But the producers have said that's not canon. That Choose Your Own Adventure is just like a fun Elseworld type thing. So they're like, they're still alive in this continuity of Final Destination. So that's cool. But I do like the train, how like, okay, she sees the train, it gets, everybody dies in the train horrifically, but then by the time, she sees it, she can't stop it, and it just happens as is. And I thought that was just such a good ending to where I'm like, this movie is like 8 out of 10 movie. I mean, that's so good. If I had to give this movie a score, I'm going to give it an A-.
Sharpton for president, y'all. I'm outie.
Jesse Jackson for VP.